Hello and welcome to today's NetBeez live demo. Today we're talking how Wi-Fi connection works. This is very important to troubleshoot connectivity issues of a Wi-Fi client. So when talking about Wi-Fi connection, there is the first step, which is the client association and authentication to the access point and to the network itself. The transaction starts with a probe request and response, where client and access point exchange and verify 802.11 capabilities, including data rates and, for example, SSID. And then in the second step, there is the authentication phase, where it is exchange the keys or the authentication method that enables the client to authenticate with the network itself to make sure that unallowed clients or external clients are able to access the private network. And lastly is the actual association step to the access point and the network itself. After this phase, of course, the client now is allowed to access the wireless network, and kind of the network portion, layer 3, comes with, for example, DHCP. DHCP is the dynamic host configuration protocol, and it's that phase where the client is requesting from the network a IP address. This is very common, of course, on any wireless network to offer DHCP addresses, because clients come and go, and differently from servers, they don't have a static IP address. So the DHCP is that protocol that enables unconfigured clients to get an IP address within the network. So the DHCP process is also called DORA, D-O-R-A transaction, where it's basically the acronym is a breakdown of what's going on between the DHCP client, or the wireless client that wants to connect to the network, and the server, the DHCP server that is solely responsible for offering and maintaining DHCP addresses. So the first step in the DORA transaction is a send by the client to the broadcast address a DHCP discovery. If a server, hopefully on the local subnet, is available, it will respond to that discovery with an offer frame that includes the packet, the IP address, that the client can use. The client then double checks, maybe with a ping or other way, that no other host on the local subnet is using that same address, actually rather in ARP. And then lastly, once the address can be taken by the client, it sends a request to the server kind of confirming the intent of using that IP address, and the DHCP server then, if that address was not claimed by any one other client in the meanwhile, will be acknowledged and reserved for that specific DHCP client. So as you can see, not too complicated. Just keep in mind of this acronym DORA to know what's going on when DHCP works or doesn't work. So if you're a network and wireless engineer troubleshooting connectivity issues of client, of course Wi-Fi connection is important to make sure that clients can connect to your wireless network. In NetBeez we use dedicated hardware and software agent to do that, and of course we use Linux in the backend. So here I want to show you how, if you're using also a Linux workstation, or you have your own way to troubleshoot wireless network with Linux, what you should be looking for in the WPA supplicant process log to troubleshoot the association and authentication steps. So you can see that here the stages are broken down between these 6 different kind of steps. In the first one, you see that the client is going from scanning to associating to a BSSID. Then, of course, he completes the association once the and this is a kind of the probe request, probe response step. Then in the association to four-way handshake is when they start the authentication phase of the connection. And then from the four-way handshake, they go to the group handshake, which is basically the exchange of the group share keys that enable Wi-Fi client to communicate in a multicast fashion, so many one-to-many. And then, of course, if also the group handshake is successful, the process exits with the completed step. So this is the WPA supplicant log and what messages you have to look for when troubleshooting Wi-Fi authentication association errors, or just also to see the regular behavior of a client. In the next slide here, you can see that also the DHCP client logs messages and the DORA workflow process in its log file, and you can see that each step of the DORA process is tagged with DHCP discover, offer, request, and ACK. And then there are like states boundaries which tell you what is going on from on the client point of view. So for instance, if you see in the log file pre-init, it means that this is the log message that says, hey, from now on you see messages related to the, for example, DORA process. And then the second line with bound, renew, rebind, reboot is any of those four states is basically a successful state once the DORA process went through. While the last line, NBI timeout fail, is when actually there is a DHCP error so that the client cannot obtain a DHCP address. So again, if you're looking to troubleshoot Wi-Fi connectivity on a Linux host, you can search for these keys or strings to exactly troubleshoot and know what's going on in the backend. So since in NetBeez we we run on Linux and we have exposed on the dashboard these logs, so our end users can use NetBeez to troubleshoot Wi-Fi connectivity issues, for example. You can see here in this wireless agent in the wireless tab, where you can see all the Wi-Fi metrics and connection and disconnection to the wireless network. You can see on the bottom that I'm listing the WPA supplicant logs and for the last day, and you can see exactly those stages that I was showing you on the slide are reported as part of the log for that connection. So scanning, associating to associated, then the four-way handshake, then the group handshake, and then this is when disconnected. This is when the client disconnects and then connects to another SSID. In this case, because it corresponds to this red and green lollipop. And then once it's disconnected, restarts again the association authentication process. Again, this has happened because this specific agent is hopping between two agents. So the disconnection is kind of driven by the logic of the SSID hopping feature in NetBeez. And to show you what happened after the WPA supplicant, let me show you this output of the DHCP DORA process after the WPA phase is terminated. So you can see, as I was saying, the event code pre-init or bound. Pre-init is before the DORA process starts, and bound is once the DORA process is successfully completed and the agent has obtained the IP address for a specific lease time. So here you can see the DHCP discover, request, offer, and ACK that I was showing you here in the slide, and also here is the boundaries for the stages, pre-init and bound. You can find them here exactly in the log file that is displayed on your NetBeez dashboard. All right. I hope this was useful to learn more about the Wi-Fi, how the Wi-Fi connection works, and also understand a little more details in the WPA association authentication step, and then the DHCP phase where the wireless agent requests a dynamic IP address.